Hey friends, how's it going? My name's Miriam and I'm a poet and I'm sitting in an armchair, hence the armchair poet. Now I wanted to share some poetry with you today, and these pieces in particular that I wanted to share were written about 15 years apart as kind of bookends of a particular experience. So as some of you may know, my family and I lived when I was a child in the Middle East for quite a few years, and the country that we lived in for the longest period was Egypt. And when I was in high school, there came a season when the politics was quite turbulent and the situation was a bit volatile, and so we actually had to leave our home quite abruptly, and we ended up moving to another country. So at that stage, I wrote the first piece. Now, this piece is significant to me both because it's about that quite intense experience, and you can hear both the drama of being 16 and the intensity of the emotion in that piece, but also because it was one of the first pieces that I wrote that was me trying to use poetry to process my emotion and to capture what I was feeling, and not focusing on rhyme, but just using repetition and rhythm kind of as I was processing. So that's one of the reasons why it was significant. And the second piece was written over this summer when, for the first time in 15 years, I actually returned to Egypt and visited a lot of childhood places. And so it's a reflection on that experience and kind of a tying up what the first poem started and some of the questions that I was asking at the time. So the first piece is called Oh Love, and it goes like this. Oh love, oh life, gone forever. Memories lost, goodbyes left unsaid, dead left to bury their dead. Why me? Why now? Why my life suddenly forbidden? Possibilities, yes, but never the same as that which was. Forever left locked away behind closed doors, smiling faces. Perhaps again, yes, but never the same. Oh love, oh life, gone forever, memories lost, goodbyes left unsaid, dead, left to bury their dead. Now the second piece, as I said, was written 15 years later, and I'll read to you a quote that is in the introduction first, and then I'll read the heading in the piece. So this quote was written by Olivia Espin, and I found it in a book on called Refugee Women and Their Mental Health. And it describes her experience of returning to her home country of Cuba for the first time in 20 years. So she says, in addition to what I have described, my trip to Cuba made me realize that for years I had felt as if my memories had had no geography. But that, in fact, what I remembered had actually happened in a definite physical space that continues to exist in reality and not only in my memory. That Cuba exists beyond what I think or feel or remember about her. This realization, which may seem all too obvious, was the more powerful because before my return, I never knew that I felt as if Cuba did not have a real existence beyond my memory. I was really struck by this quote. It really resonated with me when I was thinking about my time in Egypt and what it was like to return there. So the second piece is called The Dead Were Never Dead, and it goes like this. Oh love, oh life, goodbyes left unsaid, dead left to bury their dead. 15 years later I came back to find my dead. We drove past the city of the dead, as it's called, whole suburbs of crypts, family and wealth mixed in with the poor kin who live, work and play therein, residing as caretakers and squatters alongside the tombs, life and death together grown in the same womb. My dead were not there. We wandered amongst the pyramids, tombs of ancient kings, land of the mummies, with their gold and their rings and their sacrificial servants, buried deep beneath sand and then excavated, grimacing from behind refined glass, seeping into movies and histories, millennia and memory, intriguing but not resurrecting. silently waiting for oblivion. My dead were not there. There were glimpses of them in Mokottam. Poverty and bustle, faith and hustle, the graffiti of a fierce, hard life lived with colour. There were hints of them in the kilometres of apartment blocks, pyramids looming on the horizon, dust everywhere, and the sound of the mosque calls as pigeons circle around and around in the air. There were bursts of them in the smell of rainstorm on sand, pools of seeping, life-giving water, droplets warm and large as pearls, drenching and making clean. There were even whispers in old childhood cities, Maynooth and the green of the Delta, old friends, familiar phrases, Yan Harabyad, favourite foods, confusing moods, and the strangeness of memories once forgotten. I saw them most in the shockingly familiar roads of my old Maadi. Old shops unchanged, trees, streets dusty, scents, almost edible familiarity and noise. And again in short interactions, moments of wild humour, teasing laughter, and an energy that is so familiar, a part of me that is awoken, kraken light from my deeps when the sounds of my childhood call. Egypt, so familiar and so foreign, so mine and so not. It came as something of a surprise, foolish perhaps, that my dead were not dead after all. While my life here might have felt guillotined, at least that's how it seemed at overwhelmed 16, this land continued growing, thriving and churning, colour and revolutions, burning with all the joy and waiting, grieving, celebrating the mundanity, the dust, the noise, the laughter and the colours of Egyptian life. But at least now, I am grown. And I can return to walk the streets, carrying the multiple parts of me, and the smile, always drawn out by the calming, life-giving flowing of the Nile. And that's the end of that. I'd love to hear about how you use art to process your life, past, present, and future. No matter what happens though, in the past, the present, or the future, remember, you are fully seen and fully known and fully loved. I'll chat to you next time. Bye.